And grief in person, I find a lot of people kind of hold back and they don't talk about it. And I thought this book could be an outlet, could help heal some people as we talk more about grief. Because as a society, we kind of, we honor people and then we move on. And a lot of people don't even, feel comfortable talking about death or mentioning somebody who's passed away.
Welcome to Story Power, a bi-monthly podcast where my guests and I geek out about the stories we're passionate about in all different genres, styles, and formats. My name is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden, and I started this podcast during the summer of 2020 at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. As I watched the reaction of my friends, family, and social media circle, I noticed that many people turned to stories for comfort and help in making sense of the craziness going on around them. My goal was to do the same for my listeners. But as I chatted with my guests throughout the first year, I discovered that their personal stories were the most fascinating thing about each episode. Neil Gaiman says, "Fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten." I now know that sharing our experiences with others helps us defeat our own dragons. It is our stories that connect us to one another. Let's see what wisdom today's guest has to share with us. Today is episode 36, and I'm talking to Julie Blako. Julie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about writing and books and all the things that I've listened to your other podcasts, so I'm very thrilled.
Oh, yes. Well, I've talked to visual artists and musicians too, but because they're all storytelling. So it's all about storytelling to me. And I noticed that the book title is The Things We Keep, and it's published now, right? Is that right?
Yep, it came out July 21st.
Oh, wow.
And so it is out there in the world. Yeah, it's new.
Oh, wow. That was my 1-year anniversary for Story Power. So I want you to tell a little bit about that book, and then also how you got into writing in general as your career, because most people, and I'm included in that, think, oh, I could never make a living as a writer. So I want to hear your story.
Well, it's funny because my daytime job is as a writer too. I'm in advertising. I was a creative director for many years. And then when I had my daughter, I realized that I wouldn't get to see her very much. So I decided to start freelance writing. And that was about a decade ago. And I've, been happily under deadline ever since because I had a lot of connections with clients. I've always had work. It hasn't been that hard to be a writer, which is not, what normal people say. But I'm always writing for other people. And the last few years, I've realized I want to write for myself. And I've always wanted to be an author. So I really just kind of made sure I carved out time to work on my book and really try to just look for things that kind of, speak to my soul instead of writing for other people all the time. Though the client work does pay the bills. So that's important too. So it's a big deal that I finally have my name on a book. It's definitely my goal and probably my dream since about 4th grade, which is the first time I remember writing and being excited about writing and having a teacher that made me feel like I was something special. So I am a writer because my 4th and 5th grade teacher literally made a big deal about me and told me I was creative. And it just stuck with me that I could write.
It's amazing the impact teachers have on students, negative and positive.
Yes.
And I'm not sure all teachers know that. So I've been a teacher for many years, so I think that already.
You know the special. Well, it's funny because I actually did it wasn't all positive. In college, I had a teacher that really hated my writing. And I've never had someone that just he was male, and I don't know that matters, but he felt like it was really too personal. And just, he thought it had too much emotion was what his critique was often. He really wanted me to pull back. And it's the first time I've ever gotten C's. I got a C. I'm not a C person. I'm an A person.
Yes.
And it really bothered me. And but then I just I had his wife the next semester, and she loved my writing. So I realized, you know what? You can't please everybody. And at least my writing had a reaction. Like, at least he hated it in some ways. It was,
yes,
standing out.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's interesting because I remember I wrote something. I can't remember what it was. And I gave it to, it was not a college course. It was like the community center had this writing course, and it was for travel writing, and I took it, but I wrote something else and I gave it to the teacher. And she said the opposite to me. She said, your writing is guarded. You need to open up more. You need to let people, know your emotions and that kind of thing. So when I started my blog in 2013, that was my goal, was to learn to peel away the layers and be more open and honest about what's really going on with me. I didn't want to have a Facebook, Instagram, oh, look, my life is wonderful kind of. I wanted to say, sometimes life sucks. So.
Yeah, it's funny. In real life, I'm probably pretty guarded, but in writing, I find I write without thinking, which is scary, but it just comes straight, definitely from my heart. So it's a lot easier for me to express and open up and just kind of poke at the things that I think have emotion. It's how, why I decided to write a book about grief, which is a very emotional story, but I felt like could really resonate with a lot of people. And grief in person, I find a lot of people kind of hold back and they don't talk about it. And I thought this book could be an outlet, could help heal some people as we talk more about grief. Because as a society, we kind of, we honor people and then we move on. And a lot of people don't even, feel comfortable talking about death or mentioning somebody who's passed away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the difficulties of watching someone, if they have a long illness, watching the decline, that takes a toll. And that was one of the things that I loved about your 3 pieces that I read. 2 of them seemed to be fiction, but one was an essay. You even said that it was an essay, but they all were so poignant in identifying all the emotions that go on when you're watching someone that you love die. And you're not going to have a lot of time to express all the things that you wanted to express before they go. So, yeah. And that's, you and I were talking before we started recording about that, about my father dying. And, it was a long trajectory because I think I was in my 30s when he had his first bypass heart surgery. And so it was 20 or 22 years before he died. And he was pretty good until the last 2 or 3. And then it was like, I sensed this downward, not spiral really, but this just downturn in his health and even willingness to fight anymore, And so we tried to say everything that we could to each other in the time that we had left. And by the time he died, it was kind of interesting. It was like, in the 2 memorial services we had for him, I wept because he was my mentor. But on another level, it was like, well, okay, he's gone in the physical world, but he's still with me in the spirit world. So I don't know if you felt that way about your.
No, I mean, the things we keep, the title for that, for my book came about a few different things. It was the things we keep after someone passes. Mm-hmm. It's the things we keep from each other, the secrets, but it's also the things we keep of the people we love. We carry them with us. They come with us. So no, I definitely believe I've lost both my parents.
Oh.
And I definitely keep them both in different ways with me. My father, I kept my last name because I always thought I would be an author. And he was, definitely inspired me. and I wanted him to be on my book. So it was very, it's bittersweet, but I love that, when I see Julie Blako, the Blako is my father with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hyphenated my name, so I kept my last name too.
We keep many things. Yeah.
Yes, and I got married in 1980, and I remember my husband's grandmother said, "Well, what are you going to name the children?" We don't have children, but what are you going to name the children? I said, "Well, they'll be named Midgorden." But yes, oh yeah, I totally understand that wanting to honor your father with your name. Well, tell a little bit about where your book is available. Is it available in ebook, audiobook, and so on and so forth?
So The Things We Keep is available as a written novel, so you can read, or as an ebook. I'm like a paper copy person, but it is available both. It's on Amazon, it's Barnes and Noble. I've been working with some independent bookstores because I love independent bookstores. They are my inspiration, where it's also available. I would always go into an independent bookstore near my home in Chapel Hill. I've since moved, but just looking at the book titles and it would give me what I needed to just finish the book and keep trying. And my goal was one day to be on one of those tables. And I've reached my goal. A friend of mine sent a picture of it on a table that I would bring my daughters to and say, "Can you imagine my book here?" And there it is.
There it is. Yeah. I remember when a friend of mine, she moved from Arizona to Missouri. So when she was in Missouri, she emailed me and said, "I went to my local library and there was your book on the end cap. And I just picked it up and held it. I know the author." And I thought that was so funny.
It never gets old. When people send me pictures when they've bought it and, holding it or reading it. And I got to tell you, it never gets old. It just makes it so real. And it's, the fact that people are enjoying it. It's not an easy story. It's not a light read. It's not something you're going to read on the beach, but it is something I've heard from a lot of readers that stays with you, that makes you think about your own relationships. And for those who have been through grief, have told me that, they appreciate just the honesty of it. I really wanted to do a fiction book that kind of highlighted grief in a way that was part of the theme. A lot of books kind of, people pass away and then the character moves on. In my experience, you always carry a piece of it with you.
Mm-hmm. That's true. You do. Well, and have you been able to do any in-person or Zoom meetings with book club groups? And
it's awesome. And I've been doing some Zoom book clubs and love the questions I get. But I also love what people will share with me. And again, because the book is so, emotional, but also what I hope, deeply resonating, I've really just connected with some people, and it is amazing to hear that it's moved them, to hear that they've forgiven people, because there is a forgiveness kind of storyline. The mother and daughter relationship is not easy. It's very complicated. Mm-hmm. And I've had a few people say it made me think about my own mother and realize, through it all, she probably, she loves me, which is definitely the theme of it.
Yes. Well, and sometimes in my book, the main character's mother dies in the beginning of it. And one of the things that she discovers is that she didn't really know her mother. There were things that she learned about her, let's say it that way, that she didn't know before.
And yes, there is a huge reveal in my story as well that, what she thought she knew was not what actually was going on. And again, The Things We Keep is partly the secret, but the main character is an academic scientist. And to me, scientists, my husband's a scientist, are always looking for the truth. So it was very important for her to kind of find out the truth about her mother after she passes. And that's where she kind of learns a secret that makes her have to, rethink their relationship.
Yes. Oh, that's so great.
And that's just the writer and me having fun with,
right. Yes, yes. So you are working on a second book now. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure I wrote the title of it down. I
I
didn't.
might not have put the title in.
Oh, no, it's on your website, I think.
Oh, is it? Well, see, good that you're reading. Second book called The Me List, and it's similar in that I'm very inspired by complex relationships. So it's about a mom whose, daughter's starting to go to school, and the neighbor next door she hates, and they don't get along. But then the neighbor kind of is a real estate agent and gives her an offer to help her work with her. And their relationship is very cantankerous. And again, the things she thinks she knows about her and thinks she hates about her, she learns actually is she has no idea what's really going on in this perfect, world that she thinks the realtor has. But the me list comes about that the realtor is really type A, and every year she writes a me list, the 10 things that will improve herself. So she gets the neighbor to write a me list as well. And it's about her journey of kind of self-discovery and pushing herself. And, the things that crazy things happen, some funny, some more dramatic, but it's really about these two women that actually, of course, wind up becoming friends in the end.
Yes.
Oh, totally lighter than the things we keep, but similar in that it's a character-driven book and two strong female characters, because I like to write about strong females.
Yes, that's great. Well, and also I love that it's about discovering, I thought I knew this person's life. From the outside, it looks so perfect. And on the and then when you get on the inside, not so perfect.
Exactly.
Because I think that it happens so often.
It does. We're a judgy group, all of us. So
our humans are judgy. You're right. We are. Yeah. Oh, wow. So when you and I were emailing back and forth, you said that you had moved from North Carolina to Seattle. Huge geographical change. So tell a little bit about why you moved.
Well, I mean, the good thing about being a freelance writer is I can write from anywhere. My husband actually does study breast cancer. He helped me with the scientific parts of the things we keep, because the scientist in it also studies breast cancer. And it was our discussions about my mother, who many years ago had breast cancer, that brought out the idea for the book. He would talk to me, and I would understand kind of the science behind what was going on in her body. And it was helpful to me. And after she passed, I think I struggled a little bit with just trying to figure it all out. My daughter had just turned 1, and here I had just lost my mother. And I wanted to do something with the complexity I was feeling. And that's when I started outlining the idea for the thing we keep, and wanting it to be an academic scientist as a woman. Being a woman who is a creative director, there weren't a lot of us. And the same thing in academic science, there's more women, but when I talk to them, because through my husband, I get to talk to a lot of wonderful people, I realized we had very similar struggles as women and dominated, male jobs. And it made me realize I really wanted to have a character that was STEM focused. All my girls love, math and engineering. So I was like, maybe I make the main character the scientist.
I love that.
But that brings me to why I'm in Seattle. Well, my husband got a new job, and it was one we couldn't say no to. And I've always been curious about the West Coast. I've always wanted to live here, but I wasn't going to live here until my father passed, because was really, really close to him. We had so much fun. And he passed away last year. So I told my husband, well, now we're free to move to the West Coast.
Is he working at the University of Washington?
He's working at the Fred Hutch Cancer Center.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I think they're affiliated with the University of Washington. So.
Yeah, the medical center there.
Yeah.
My sister and her family take care of my mom, and she's going to be 90 in July. And when they moved from Colorado back to the Seattle area, they were so grateful, because my mom goes to the University of Washington Medical Center, and she gets such great care there. So they were very, very excited to move back to that area and have such great care for my mom, who is still doing pretty well. But, as you get older, sometimes you need more care. So.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the difference between, because I've been to North Carolina and it's so beautiful.
It is so sunny. I miss the sun. I'm not going to lie. That was the part I was most nervous about saying goodbye to.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always traveled a lot, so I like an adventure. I think the pandemic definitely made life feel small, and I was ready for some bigger trees and bigger water, but very different. There's no humidity here, so that's nice but strange. Every time we go outside, we're like, the air is so nice.
Well, coming from Arizona, I would have a different. I mean, I used to live in the Northwest, and then when we moved to Arizona, it was like the air is so dry here, and then. But yes, for you, yes. Yeah.
We've only been here about a month, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I launched my book and then literally the week after we moved, which not ideal. I don't recommend that. But a year ago, I had no idea I was going to be moving to Seattle. So.
Right. Yes. Oh my gosh. So you're hardly even settled yet.
I still have some boxes.
Well, you're coming into the best time in the Northwest, September and early October, really.
Yeah, it's been really beautiful here, which is probably, we do have raincoats, but we haven't had to wear them yet.
That's good. Yes. Well, maybe middle to late October, it might start raining. Yeah. But so then you get to go to a different ocean then.
Yes, that is true. It is much colder. But it's cool.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. Yes. Moving around. I've done a whole lot of that in my life, but it was all mostly in the Northwest until I went to college in the Midwest. And then.
Yeah, this is definitely our biggest move.
Yes. Oh, wow. Almost all the way across the whole country. My goodness. But good for you. So you may move again. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably the writer in me. I like new places. I like new people. I can always find something.
Yeah.
There's coffee shops everywhere and bookstores everywhere. So
that's right. Yes. Yeah. That's right. Every community has them.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing is most of my clients are obviously on the East Coast. So getting used to some early meetings is tough. But
yes, that's true. Yes. Yes. But maybe you'll start to get some on the West Coast. That will be helpful.
That would be helpful.
And thank heaven for Zoom. Or whatever you use, because, oh my goodness, it would be so difficult if we didn't have that. So do you also write, you have 3 stories or 1 essay and 2 stories on your website. Are you going to continue writing more stories and or blog posts?
Yeah, that started with the same thing where I felt like I needed to write more for me and what I wanted to write about. And as I was working on my book, and then my dad also wound up getting really sick, I had written The Things We Keep before he had gotten sick, and dealing with some of the emotions and knowing that I'm going to have this book out that talks about grief. I was like, well, let me start writing about it and, connecting with people and sharing my experience. I think, I had a friend that was a writer that was like, join Medium and, start writing whatever you want. And I love the freedom in that if I have an idea or if I wanted to write a short story, that I just can. So I'm sure I will keep doing that. Right now, my focus is whenever I'm not working, I'm trying to finish the second book, because I think it's a little bit lighter and there's room right now, especially with the pandemic. People need a lighter book. They need to remember, human relationships can be really good. So I would definitely love to finish that in my spare time. I do write a bit of poetry here and there too. It's a nice creative way to just express things. So I have some of that on my website as well.
Yes, I'm sorry I didn't look at the poetry.
You don't have to. Not everyone loves poetry.
I was trying to find out more about you, and I wanted to read those short stories and your essay. And I loved the poignancy of it, and also it was just it brought up emotions in me that I haven't really thought about in however many years since my dad died, 2004. So it was like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember feeling that. And that was really neat. So
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. And one of the things I do is push myself to write about these moments that not everyone necessarily talks about. Because the first time I went through grief, it felt very lonely. I think I was just very young and all my friends hadn't lost somebody.
Right.
And it seemed like this big deal that nobody talked about. And that was strange to me. Like, ooh, this is actually not easy. And I think the writer in me, I always look to books like, why hasn't a fiction novel like help me understand this? Why haven't I seen this portrayed? And that's really where the idea came from, was like, there needs to be a novel that kind of sheds light on this a little bit and makes people, tap into those feelings, not in a way that's upsetting, but in a way that's like, okay, it's hard to lose somebody, and it does become kind of part of our story.
Right. Do you find that when someone else is going through the grief, you have a way to talk to them because of what you've gone through? Or is it difficult for you to talk to other people about their grief?
Well, I think I know how important it was for me to talk about it, to have people that said, even if it was awkward, that just was like, I miss your dad. He was important to me, like someone who broke the silence. So I definitely push myself to reach out more than once, to definitely reach out on like key dates, whether it's a holiday, knowing that each of the first of everything is always just hard, and not be afraid, to mention the person's name and not to pretend like they don't exist anymore, because that happens sometimes too. And yeah, I've had definitely a few friends who we've really connected because I was there for them, because I did realize it's important. A lot of times people bring food and help you during that first kind of week or so, but then the world moves on, and you're still kind of left with, it's still your world. And whether you've lost a parent or somebody in your life, you're still kind of living with that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's hard in our society. It's like we kind of got that British stiff upper lip attitude. And well, and I've seen stories or read stories where people say, it's been a year, it's time for you to move on. Well, at one movie I watched, this woman said, I don't care if it's a year or 10 years, I'm still grieving. And somebody said to her, yeah, like there's ever an end to grief. And in a way, I think that's true. There are still times when I wish I could just call up my dad and say, I need your advice, or, whatever it is, or just to talk to him about things that he loves. So, yeah.
And to me, that seems much more normal. Like, right, he was your father for your whole life, than to kind of, just feel like there's a deadline to when you should miss him. It is a very interesting world that we live in our society, where they feel like it's like grief should be on a timeline and we should move on and we should, forget or whatever. But, and I think as women, we carry so much, we're the caretakers and we're supposed to balance all these things. And it's okay that, we have emotions, and that we aren't just sprinting along, and life can have some weight to it.
Yes. Well, I did, going back to your instructor, your teacher who was a male and said, oh, your piece is too emotional. I remember years ago, the History Channel had this thing called The Secrets of Body Language. And one of the little tidbits in that documentary was women's voices trigger the emotional centers of the male brain. And so they say, you're too emotional, when really it might not be the woman who's emotional. It might be triggering some emotion in them. And maybe that was sort of what happened with your pieces that you were writing for him, is they were triggering emotional stuff in him, and he felt uncomfortable with it or something.
Yeah, clearly he had issues. No, I'm just kidding. But clearly he was definitely responding, which is funny, and what you want from writing, right? You want a response. Yes. And now I can look back and think, obviously, like you said, it was hitting a nerve in him, and the writing to me, that's what good writing does. So I hope he reads my book and hates it, and then I'll know it's great.
That's right. That's right. Yes. It would always be a kind of fun thing to be a fly on the wall and hear the discussions between he and his wife about your writing.
When it came up and I didn't know they were married, and she's like, you had, my husband for whatever this class. And, I was so tickled because I was like, ooh, this is great. And it made me realize, like, even the fact that, they had such polar reactions was cool. And that, I just need to embrace my style. And that's what I did. And it was from the heart, and it was honest. And yes, there is some emotion in it, and there should be. It's the kind of books I like. I mean, I like character-driven emotional novels. So I was surprised I wrote one.
Well, I don't know. I can't really think of any novels that I've read that didn't spur some emotion in me. And yeah, you don't want, if you're going to have a non-emotional something, read a nonfiction book. But even sometimes those have emotion in them. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, that's the purpose of writing. And that's why I love teaching. Well, for a while, I had to teach English. I didn't get to teach theater. And one of the students said, why do we have to take these? Because I was teaching American Lit. So it was a lot of the documents that started the United States, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and things like that. And writings by Jefferson and Franklin and so on and so forth. And they said, why do we have to read these? We read them in history class. And I said, well, writing is how people express themselves, how they convey emotion. There's always a purpose for what is, the writer always has a purpose for what they're writing. And so this is kind of showing us what they were thinking about when they wanted to break from England, and the kids went, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's true. I think you learn about them as history. You don't necessarily evaluate them as writing. So
as cool. Yes, as written documents, right? Yeah, or even the why behind why they wrote them. Yeah, exactly. Well, so what do you have planned for after you finish your second book?
Well, the things we keep, I was lucky in that I did a pitch war on Twitter, and that's how I found my publisher. So for the Me List, I'm hoping this time I land an agent because it's a lot of work, promoting your book, and it's been fun. And because I'm in advertising and marketing, I just treat myself as my own client and, work on, doing things like this, or I get to talk to people, and it's been awesome. But I totally could see why a literary agent would be wonderful. And because the Me List is a more commercial book, the things we keep is considered literary fiction because of the timeline changes and, a few other reasons. It's just a tougher story. And I actually got the feedback from a few agents like, we love your tone, we love your writing, but we're looking for a more commercial book. So that's kind of gave me the idea of like, I can do that. That's easy. You just sit down and not that it's that easy, but I was like, that sounds like a challenge. Let me see where this goes. And that's where the Me List came from. So after that is finished, I will, do the querying where you query to agents and hit back some of the ones that had loved the things we keep, but just thought it was too tough of a story. Whereas interestingly, my publisher was like, with the pandemic, the whole world is grieving right now, and this book is needed. So I thought that was a really cool perspective, and made me realize, especially since I've talked to so many readers, there is a reason this book is published right now, and there are a lot of people that are needing it and not wanting to feel alone.
And we're not just grieving because we're losing somebody, but we're losing the life that we used to know, or some people have lost their jobs, or I personally didn't really grieve that much because I really loved being home all the time. And when my husband was working at home, it was like, oh, that's so great.
Writers are meant for pandemics. I'm the same way. I'm like, oh, I write from home always. The world stopped. Okay, no worries. I'll just keep writing. But yeah, it is kind of funny.
Yeah, really. Except it was difficult to teach acting via Zoom. But but that was not really grief. That was just, oh, this is a challenge. So I'm glad we're back to face on that class. So do you have anything else that you want to say? Like maybe you have some book recommendations for our listeners?
Oh, that's interesting. You know what I have been doing lately is because, you see your book among lots of other books, is that I've been trying to read all the books that are kind of out at the same time as mine. One as just, it's cool because I see the covers and I don't even worry what it's about. I'm like, I'm going to read it because I've seen it. And it pushes me to just read genres that I haven't necessarily read a lot of. Like, I've actually read 2 romance books this year, and I had never read romance before. Right now I'm reading People We Met on Vacation. And because I saw it everywhere, and it's not a book I would normally pick up, but I thought, okay, let me read this. I just read Malibu Rising, which was also just, I've seen the cover everywhere. So I'm kind of trying to be this, like, I guess, reader but learner to see what the books that are popular, why, and, do I feel the same way? Can I evaluate them from a writing standpoint and a reader standpoint of what people love? So I guess that's the thing I love about being a writer, is that I love to be inspired by other writers, and just, I try to read as much as possible. And anytime another writer is looking for a review, I always offer to say, I'll read your book. Because again, it gets me to read books that I might not normally know about. And I like to give back. And, I always give 5-star reviews. I think the whole review system is just a little silly, and I'm not going to judge someone else's work. I will review it with my heart. But if you wrote a book, you get 5 stars from me.
Yes. If I'm reviewing a book, I always kind of use the method that we do for critiquing a scene. I learned it actually when I was getting my master's of education. These are the things that were really great about it. These are the things that could be improved. And these are the things that really, but sometimes there is nothing that needs to be improved. But if I have something that I didn't connect with, and I always couch it that way. It's like, well, I didn't really understand this, or I didn't connect with it, but I don't criticize it as, oh, you are a terrible writer because I didn't connect with it.
Right. It's their viewpoint. One of the things I was worried about in the things we keep is that I do have flashbacks. And I've heard from readers have very strong opinions, whether they like flashbacks or not. But for me, the whole way I created the theme of the book is that grief kind of, you're in the moment and then something triggers you to a memory. And I thought that just stayed very true to the theme and could help the reader learn about the present, but then be triggered back to the past. But for the most part, it's gone better than I expected, and most people are okay with it. I also, at the beginning of grief, you have so many memories as your mind kind of works through it, that the beginning of the book has a lot more flashbacks. And then as the grief lessens, the flashbacks lessen. They reduce as the character kind of moves forward.
Right.
So that's one of those things, though, that, I've gotten, for the most part, wonderful, beautiful reviews. But there have been 1 or 2 readers that are like, ooh, flashbacks. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. Some people just aren't a fan.
I guess I understand the flashback thing because I watch a lot of movies and TV where they have them. And that's how they give information. Theater, theater, movies, and TV, they only have a certain amount of time to tell the story. So sometimes you get a lot of information when you have flashbacks.
That is true. And, it's funny. I watch movies and TVs with my daughters, and I'm always I blame the writers for everything. But now they'll be like, oh, the writer's trying to advance the plot. They killed off the parents because that's a quick way for you to identify with the character.
That's right. Yeah.
My husband says I've ruined movies for them, but I think they're just really good listeners. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I like flashbacks because I always like when you get more information about a character's background and why they do what they do. Of course, that's my whole theater background is character motivations and
Oh yeah, and I'm a writer who loves characters. Like I would much rather read a book that really gets you into the character than, maybe a plot driven or something else type of novel. So to me, the more well-rounded these people take shape, the more I think the reader feels the story. And that's what I've heard is that a lot of people felt like Serena, the main character in my book, was real, was breathing, was they understood her from just how hard it is to balance motherhood and your job and taking care of somebody to just her, everyday feelings. And when people think she's real, that's a good thing.
yeah, that is a good thing. That's great. Okay, I'm going to have to go get it and read it now that
I know. I think you do need to read it because I want to talk to you about it.
Oh, great.
Especially since you've been through grief, and you like characters, and yeah, I think you'll appreciate it.
Well, and I'll have to tell my sister about it and my niece about it too, because we talk books and movies and TV a lot. So yeah, I'll tell them about it. And they live in Renton, not too far from you. So
cool. I think I went to a dog park there. We're visiting Seattle through dog parks. We have a big 100-pound rescue hound. So we've been kind of like going to the different dog parks and seeing different parts of Seattle for fun.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I love it. Their dogs are little. Okay, so do you have anything else that you want to say before we say goodbye?
No, I mean, obviously I would love it if people would purchase the things we keep. I love doing the book club. So people have reached out to me to do author Zoom Q&As, and it's been wonderful connecting. Like to me, that's why I write, is for readers. So if you're interested in having me do an author Zoom Q&A, you can write me on my email or I think through my website, which is just juliebalko.com.
Yes, I'll have in the show notes, I'll have your website and your social media outlets so that people can contact you after they've read the book. I was wondering, one last thing. I have a couple of writer friends who I reviewed their books through this service called NetGalley.
And it is on NetGalley. Yep, my publisher put it on NetGalley, and I have had some wonderful reviews through that. And yeah, it's been great. Okay. My early reviews were all through NetGalley.
Yes. Well, because I could go and review books there, but right now I'm really busy. We're starting a theater club with our students, and then I'm also trying to finish my second book and so on and so forth. So, but yes, NetGalley I'm giving a shout out to Podmatch and NetGalley today. So, good. That's good. I'm glad that you got reviews, because I don't know if they do independently published books, which is my book. I'm in my 60s. I didn't want to wait for 3 years to have my book published. And I probably will independently publish my second book as well. But I don't know if they do it that way, but I think it would be really great to put my book up there and get some reviews.
Yeah, it was really affirming. I mean, obviously, first book, it's really scary. And then all of a sudden, the NetGalley reviews come in about a month before the book comes out. Mm-hmm. And that was my first taste at are people going to like this story? And they were really, some wonderful things were said. And it gave me confidence that I wasn't crazy. Okay. And it was really cool. Yeah. People,
that's great.
Definitely. You can tell when someone's had an experience in their past or might have a complicated relationship with one of their parents, because those are the reviews where you can feel it and that they really felt the book.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so great. Good. So go check out NetGalley and review a book and help it get sold.
Right.
And yeah, because I'm not sure your book is there anymore since it's published, but pre-published, you can read pre-published books and help them get an audience.
And give the writer confidence.
Yes.
The other thing, it's you are real people. So your words do matter, and definitely can, make you feel even better.
Yes. Well, Julie, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome.
hope you enjoyed the show. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend and give us a review on your favorite podcast app. It will help people find us. You'll find the show notes for this episode at my website, Sage Woman Chronicles, at sagewoman.life. You can leave a comment there. And remember, as Philip Pullman said, after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. Until next time, this is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thanks for listening.